Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we are going to do a USA versus Mexico preview, final game of the group stage for both of these two teams. USA already qualified for the 2023 World Cup. There's a lot, though, to get in through this preview on both sides of the ball. But first, before we take that deep dive, I want to give you all a reminder. We are nominated here at Attacking Third for the Best Female Hosted Podcast category in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. We appreciate everything you all do for us, hopping onto the lives, listening to our previews and recaps, checking out our highlights. And we hope that you enjoy our show enough to nominate us to advance into the final round. To nominate Attacking Third, go to podcastawards.com/app/sign up and then toggle down to the Female Hosted Podcast category. The entire process takes less than 60 seconds. We've included the link at the top of the episode description as well. If you are watching this on YouTube, there's a handy dandy little QR code there for you to scan and vote for us. Go ahead and take the quick time to do us that favor. We'd really appreciate it. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Attacking Third. And we're available as video. Hit subscribe at youtube.com/attacking third for previews, recaps, exclusive interviews, and more. We're going to get into the and more right now. Lisa, how you doing
my
today?
my reads for you are getting longer and longer and longer, but it's just because we've got so many great things we've got to talk about. I know that when we go live and we mentioned that we've been nominated for a People's Choice Podcast Award for Best Female Hosted Podcast. People in the chat are always like, I voted for you. I voted for you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Tweet at us. Let us know that you voted for us. Tweet at your friends. Tell them to vote for us. Tell your mom and your brother and your friend and everyone else. It really means a lot. So thank you. I am good, Sandra. I've got a bit of a change of location this weekend, traveling as well. So don't mind me. But I'm excited to talk about it. I mean, it's been a crazy, crazy couple of days, and we get to dive into it because U.S. has qualified for the World Cup. Huge things happening there, but there are still so many more implications online for this Concacaf W Championship, and Monday is going to be a huge, huge day in the Federation.
You know, we hopped on late during the evening when the verdict.
It was actually this morning.
Yeah, it was actually the morning. You're right. It was early in the AM. It was well after midnight for me, well after 1 a.m. for you, but it was official, right? The way things shook out on match day 2 of this tournament, the United States clinched a World Cup berth on Thursday thanks to a 3-0 win by Haiti over Mexico. That means with the United States clinching their spot in the 2023 World Cup, what that means for this CONCACAF championship is that the lowest the United States can place in CONCACAF is second. So congratulations once again. Please go check out our reaction episode to the United States making their 9th World Cup appearance. They are the 12th team to qualify for the 2023 World Cup. It's an exciting time for the United States women's national team, but the work's not done. That was something else that we sort of saw coming out of all of the reactions from last night. We saw the players reacting to the news in real time via their social media as well. A lot of excitement. But we talked about this United States women's national team often on this show. And I've referred to them as sort of this machine, this sort of ridiculous program, right? They're the number 1 ranked team in the world for a reason. They're the national team that probably spends the most time with each other, plays some of the most games throughout the international windows. And they already have the energy where it's like, okay, the job's not done. It's only one of our boxes that are checked off here in this CONCACAF tournament. And they're looking ahead a little bit already to something like winning this entire thing, because that means you get a straight buy-in into the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. If you win this tournament, you get that qualification spot, and you also get the spot for the 2024 W Gold Cup. So there's still some things at stake here for this United States women's national team, Lisa.
There definitely are, because as you mentioned, is that, and as everyone on this team is saying, that the job's not done, because yes, the U.S. qualified for the World Cup, but they want to win the Concacaf W Championship. They don't want to get second. They want to get first. They want to get their ticket to the Olympics, and you can tell the determination is on their faces. But not just the United States, but there's also a lot of moving parts within this CONCACAF championship right now, and everything else that is kind of coming out about it. The teams that are being influenced, and the nations that can qualify and can do certain things like that are truly interesting to kind of evaluate and look at, because Monday is going to be a huge day for these types of for these federations and for all of these teams. And we have to look at that and kind of what could happen on Monday is huge. And the U.S. also has implications in that, because they want to get enough points out of this group standing so they get a better seeding in the next round of this tournament. But I think the Olympics being on the line is one of the biggest things that the United States now has their eye on. Win the CONCACAF W Championship and secure a spot in the Olympics.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a new motivating factor, I think, within this tournament, because I think the World Cup qualification was obviously first, but now you've got the other things coming as part of the package deal within this competition. So that doesn't mean necessarily in this final group stage game against Mexico where they're going to obtain those things. There's still something like winning first place in the group, right, is still technically on the line, and advancing to the semifinals and having that number one seed going into the semifinals. On the U.S. side of things, you want to win this game. I don't think you want to go into these semifinals saying, okay, let's get into these semifinals and face off against Canada in this semifinal round. I think a lot of people looking into this tournament sort of maybe saw the final coming down to the reigning 2019 World Cup champions and the current Tokyo game Olympic gold medalist in Canada. So there's still that first place, to sort of confirm, in this game against Mexico. And quite frankly, Lisa, with the way the tournament has gone for Mexico, the United States might go out there and make this an even tougher tournament for the hosts.
I honestly think that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, I feel for Mexico right now. They are coming off of 2 back-to-back losses against Jamaica, against Haiti, and being the host country, having a lot of pressure on them to succeed. They didn't make the World Cup last time, and they're pushing to make it this time. And the fact that their plans kind of unraveled on them as they did a pretty devastating loss, 3-0 to Haiti on Thursday night. It changed everything. You could see the defeat, the devastation, the anguish on those Mexican players' faces as that final whistle was blown and as that game came down to it. And for a million reasons, right? They weren't getting the win. They didn't get the 3 points. They knew that they needed to win this match over Haiti to have a better chance of qualifying for the Women's World Cup. There is still an opportunity, but in that last match for Mexico against Haiti, they suffered a number of devastating losses, injuries to their center backs, red cards. They committed 2 penalty kicks that Haiti capitalized on and scored. Another set piece opportunity for Haiti outside the box, another foul committed. But a lot of things did not go in favor of Mexico. And I'm not sure that it's going to ignite that fire in Mexico for Monday's match against the United States to come out and be this dominating force. I'm nervous that Mexico is going to crumple under this pain of knowing that now to qualify for the Women's World Cup, this mountain is incredibly, incredibly high. So they're not out. Mexico is not out of the Women's World Cup yet. However, they need to advance to the playoff tournament, the Intercontinental Tournament, after this Concacaf W Championship, and they can only advance. Mexico can only advance with a win over the United States and a little bit of help from Haiti and Jamaica. That match between Haiti and Jamaica cannot end in a tie. So Mexico needs to win. Haiti, Jamaica cannot end in a tie. And that means that Mexico only qualifies for the Intercontinental Tournament. They still have to play more matches there, win out, and then they potentially get a spot at the Women's World Cup. That's a tall mountain for Mexico to climb.
Yeah, it's I love hearing you lay it out like that, because I think if this is if you're looking at the landscape of this competition, you're saying, okay, so they could still make it. There's
Hmm.
one more game, but there's everything else, the other layers that come in with it. So it's not just one more game, it's the final game of this group stage, and it's the final match of the group stage against the United States women's national team. And then not only do you need a victory there, which will be incredibly difficult to obtain. You're, like you said, Lisa, you're talking about the fact that they've got all these other underlying factors. I mean, they're also going to be without their starting center backs in this game. They've lost Rebecca Bernal. She went out. She exited that game against Haiti with what looked like a shoulder injury, clavicle area. And then you had Greta Espinosa pick up that red card, like you mentioned. These are their starting center backs, and they're not going to be available for this game against the United States, a team that went their first two games building up their score lines. So opening up their tournament with a 3-0 win over Haiti, then a 5-0 win over Jamaica. I would not be surprised if this match gets really ugly at some point. I
Yeah,
mean,
even
I'm talking like maybe 6 or 7 goals. I mean, I would hate to see it, quite frankly, but it's a tall task for this Mexican women's national team, and they have not been able to play from behind. They have gone down early in both of their games, and in their second game it only got worse as the game went on.
so I want to ask you, Sandra, as someone that is invested in this Mexican side and wants to see them do well, what do you think the conversation is right now, or the thoughts are right now with Monica Vergara, with her team, and her message to them as they head into this final do or die match
Yeah.
against the United States?
I think we heard a little bit of it already. I think coming out of the exit interviews from that match against Haiti, we heard Vergara on the podium talking about how things like this are part of the process,
Mm-hmm.
and that they still have a match in front of them. That she herself has, failed many times before, but you have to get back up and look ahead of you. And that sentiment was, almost echoed a little bit by someone like Jimena Lopez saying there's still another game to play. They have to have their best game against the United States. So there's it's an interesting dynamic, I think, that's coming out, or an interesting energy, I should say, that's coming out from the team right now. Because for me, as someone who has covered and followed this team for many years, seeing them go through coaching change, seeing them go this program, be part of the NWSL, and then see their federation remove their players from this league, have seen the development of their own women's professional league and the beginning stages of progress within the program. They're saying the right things, but it's not matching up with what's happening on the pitch tactically. So it's a little bit
It's
frustrating, I think,
Yeah, I
for
think
someone
that's a
like
word.
me.
That's a great word. Frustrated.
It's a little bit frustrating for me to sort of watch this team go through this tournament in the way in which they're doing it, because I think there was a lot of coming into this tournament, especially when it was announced that Mexico was going to be the host.
Mm-hmm.
The energy around this team and the profile of this team elevated, I think, for many people for who are neutrals of this sport, or people who just like to, the casual fan who like to see the big international tournament. They were their profile elevated. Mexico women's national team profile elevated because of how they were playing going into this tournament. They had enough there to where it wasn't hype. They had a double digit lead into this game winning streak, undefeated streak into this tournament. You're talking about an undefeated streak that was going back into 2021. This is the same team and same coach that drew against Canada and defeated them in November of 2021 off of Canada's gold medal win in the Olympics. This same team. So you're talking about a 10-game undefeated streak heading into this tournament, dominating their qualifying process to get to this stage. They absolutely had the narrative around them that this was a tournament in which they should excel in and shine. And it's been the complete opposite for this team here.
And
So
even with the rise of Liga MX Femenil in Mexico, and the fact that these players have so many consistent games and they have the opportunity to play, because now they have players on this Mexican national team playing in Europe, playing in the NWSL, playing in the domestic league in Mexico and Liga MX Femenil. And maybe the pressure. I mean, frustrating
100%,
is such a good word for it. And the pressure that they faced, and you see some teams really rise to that pressure and really want to take that on head on, and it makes them stronger to connect to fire under them. But I think that Mexico felt this pressure a little too much, and because of that crumpled,
no, 100%.
Right?
I know I've mentioned, we've chatted a little bit about this, off mic. We text each other through the games and stuff, but bringing it here to the podcast, I mean, just watching that first game alone from this team, it was immediate. And again, it's just from years of watching the team in their games and sort of seeing them and how they start a game versus how they finish a game. There wasn't a lot of too much difference for me. I think that was using another word, going from frustrating to concerning. So it was concerning for me for this team, because part of Vergara's sort of resume, so to speak, in terms of being a head coach, she's a great coach for developmental purposes. She is a coach that has made this program better. She has, and she is someone, as part of her resume, is the type of coach that tries to instill belief in her players. And we saw that with her time in some of these youth national teams. Obviously the U17s going to, becoming runners up in their youth World Cups. And what I saw in these first two games for Mexico, was a lack of that. It was a lack of belief. That you could see it in the body language in some of the players on the pitch, especially as the minutes were starting to just tick away in this game against Haiti. I mean, you could see it especially on a player like Greta Espinosa picking up the red, trying not to cry coming off of the pitch. It's an incredibly difficult moment to be in, and it just sort of felt like it was getting worse and worse for the team. So that part was concerning for me, that this is a coach that has that as part of her resume, that she is able to get the buy-in and the lock-in from the team, able to instill belief in players, in the system, in the program. And it just has gone, it was like a flight response. It just was like, we've seen it missing. So yes, there's one game left. It's against the United States women's national team. Are we going to see that return? Are people going to see the Mexican women's national team that they were hoping to see throughout this tournament? I don't know. I really sincerely don't know.
I think it's a sad sentiment, especially for someone like you, maybe cheering for Mexico in this sense. But on the flip side of it, to be a little bit more optimistic, I'm really happy for Haiti in this sense.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And we have to look at the U.S. side of it, because as we look at a Mexican side, that are they going to rise to the occasion? Are they going to turn the script and flip the switch and be that team that comes out and proves what they can do, with what I believe that they can do? Meanwhile, a United States team that is going through a bit of a roster turnover, and they have these newer generation players in the mix of veterans, and they're trying to fight for playing time, every single player. And I think that the United States is taking the challenge that they have been given, and the individual players are taking the challenge of fighting for roster spots. And you look at the battle between Ashley Hatch and Alex Morgan in that number 9 center striker role, and these U.S. players are doing that, and they're fighting, and they're proving that they want to go out and win everything. And they've gotten this one. And what's the next one? What's the next win they can get? What's the tournament they can win next? Can they qualify for the Olympics? And they keep raising the bar for themselves, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious on the U.S. side of things here, Lisa, because we've been chatting up Mexico and what we think is on the line for them, and what we could see from them. But with the World Cup spot already clinched,
Mm-hmm.
with maybe sights ahead a little bit on nabbing a spot for the 2024 Olympic Games, what do we think we might see from this United States women's national team side? Because there's a couple areas on the pitch that I'm looking at positionally, personnel wise. I'm wondering if someone like Amel Pugh gets time in this game. She went back to back games for this team in the group stage. We're talking max minutes here for the United States. What are we going to see in the goalkeeper position? Is there going to be more rotation there? What are some areas you're looking at for this team heading into this game? Is there some rotation that you would like to see? Is there someone you want to? Is there someone on the team that you want to see get more minutes?
Yeah, I think these are all incredibly important questions, and you can't just look at the last match that the United States played against Jamaica, but you do have to reference that first match against Haiti, because you talk about a player like Mallory Pugh who got 90 minutes in those games, someone like Alana Cook who also got 90 minutes, and the players that maybe didn't play the last time the U.S. played against Jamaica, we saw a number of players get rest. I imagine we'll see more rotation because you have to remember that Vlatko Andonovski and this team, yes, they're looking at this U.S. versus Mexico match. Incredibly important for them. They need to get the win. They need to get goals and points on the board. But they also have more games after that. They've already made it out of this group stage. They have to continue on. They want to get first in Concacaf. So you have to play the long game in a sense with this U.S. team. They play Monday, and then they'll play again on Thursday. When we look at the goalkeeper position, Casey Murphy got the start in the first match for the U.S. against Haiti. Alyssa Nair, full 90 in the second match against Jamaica. I'm not entirely sure. I think you might go back to Casey Murphy. We talked a little bit about Aubrey Kingsbury, and if we'll see her get her qualifying debut and make her qualifying debut and get a cap with the U.S. in this tournament. I'm not entirely sure, though. I think between Murphy and Nair, he's got really good things going on there. It would behoove him to give Kingsbury some experience. However, I'm not entirely sure against Mexico if that's the move that Vlatko Andonovski is going to make. The rotation in the midfield as well. Andy Sullivan did not see time against Jamaica. She got the rest there. So will she be back in that role? They've slotted in Christy Mewis into that defensive six role. Will she get a start in that role and kind of see how she can dictate the game from the beginning? Alex Morgan got full rest. Megan Rapinoe got full rest. Becky Sauerbrunn got full rest in these last matches. I expect we'll see more minutes from them. I expect to see more minutes from Megan Rapinoe as someone who was brought into this tournament. Minute management has to be a factor in this match. I would love to see more from Trinity Rodman. Not entirely sure she'll get a start. However, a substitute in at 45, that would be fantastic to see. I want to see how Trinity Rodman plays alongside someone like Alex Morgan in that front line, maybe with a Margaret Purse. But with Morgan in that number 9 central striker, Trinity Rodman out wide in a position that she's a little bit more comfortable in versus playing that center number 9 striker that we saw against Jamaica. That's really what I want to see in the front line for Vlatko.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm in agreement with you too about the goalkeeper position. I just don't think at this stage in the tournament is where you say, you know what, we're gonna give our number 3 goalkeeper minutes in this game in the final match group stage. But who knows? We'll see. Obviously, when that plays out, if there is a rotation in goalkeeper, I would imagine it would go to Murphy in a game like this. But I would like to see more Chrissy Mewis in a game like this, quite frankly. If the idea is to preserve Andy Sullivan as much as you can, or even Lindsay Horan as much as you can, because she's a player who's been subbed out of these last couple of games. If that's the idea, if that's the game plan, why not give Chrissy Mewis a full shot at Mexico here with the final group stage match and the World Cup already clinched. So
what about Taylor Korniak? We saw her get minutes in the US's last match against Jamaica. I don't think she'll get a start, but
I guess I'm thinking more positionally. I guess I'm thinking more like in the 6th role, as I made my reference to Andy Sullivan, because if we see Korniak come into this game, I don't know if it's in a deeper role like that. She's been thriving this year in 2022 a little bit higher, and quite frankly, if they put Taylor Korniak out there against Mexico in a higher position, I mean, that's going to be a tough day, a tough day for that Mexican back line. I mean, you're talking about the tallest player out there on the pitch.
6'1".
Yeah.
Taylor Korniak is 6'1".
There would be not a lot of answers for that. None, quite frankly. I think if you're the defense, if you're Mexico's defense, you're going to be like, what the hell, man? So, it's just going to be like, te odio. So it's going to be like, it's going to be a tough, it would be tough if that would come into play. But we've seen her get a few minutes. Maybe that is a player that they're going to give a little bit more extended minutes to. Again, I don't know, with the return of Megan Rapinoe, do you try to get some minutes under her belt in this game going into the knockout rounds? I don't know if it's a full 45 or a start or a final 30 minutes in the second half. I don't think that's a bad idea. Jet lag is very, very real. Maybe you want to try to give that player some minutes going into those knockout rounds. So
just get her legs moving and for sure.
I think the real point here is that, quite frankly, there's options here. Quite frankly, there's options here. It's impressive what the team has done. I think there's been some storylines right around this team going into this tournament, and one of them was going to be lack of experience. Quite frankly, there's a lot of players on this team that have not had the challenge of being the roster that has to go out and qualify for the World Cup. This was a very different scenario for many of these players. And guess what? They did it in like 1.5 match days. Yeah. It's it just goes to show how incredibly strong the depth of this team is, how wide the player pool of this team is, and that you can task them with something like this and they can go out there and achieve it. So now the next thing is snatching first place in this group and moving on to the knockouts and getting and winning the whole thing. And I think that even with the options, even with players who might perhaps see extended minutes in this match that may not have seen a lot of minutes in the first 2 games, they will still find success on the pitch.
I agree. And Vlatko has to be looking at he has to be playing the long game. And I think injuries also play a part in that. And I know he said that everyone is 100%, but this is an opportunity to maybe rest a Lindsey Horan, as you mentioned, or Sophia Smith that's maybe dealing with something, or Mallory Pugh, who's played back-to-back 90 plus. Because you have to play the long game. At this point, the U.S. is vying for number 1 in this CONCACAF. They've checked off the first thing, qualifying for the World Cups. Now can they win the tournament? And then can they qualify for the Olympics? 1 done, 2 more to go for the United States. And it all happens on Monday, where a lot of other implications happen as well, because it's match day 3 for all of these nations, especially in Group A. And there's a lot on the line so far for this group.
Yep, both groups are going to close out their group stage on Monday, July 11th. You've got Canada, Costa Rica, Panama, Trinidad and Tobago as the first slate of games, kicking off at 7 p.m. Eastern. First place, obviously, on the line in that group as well. And for Group A little bit different. It's going to be the doubleheader for Group A is going to be the late night slate of games. Those matches are going to be kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern. You're going to have Jamaica versus Haiti on one side, and then of course United States women's national team going up against Mexico on the other side of things. Both of those games kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern, like I said. So, this might be one of those nights, this must be one of those evenings where folks are going to have the multi-screeners going on. I know we do that a lot here at Taking Third when we're texting each other, showing each other our setup, how many screens we got going on with the games. But it'll be an exciting final match day. And I know we're going to be tuned in on that to make sure that we update everybody on all the happenings in the Concacaf W Championship. That's all we got for today's preview, everyone. Thank you all so much for listening to Attacking Third. Please go ahead and nominate us for the best female hosted podcast. You can vote for Attacking Third at the podcastawards.com/app/sign up. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your shows. We're also available as video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Visit youtube.com/attacking third. And we'll be back covering the Concacaf W Championship in-depth, all tournament long, with in-depth previews and live United States women's national team recaps. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.